So let's talk about press, and I welcome you, Sarah Foote. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Let's just introduce yourself and tell us what you do and a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so probably quite a colourful story, really. Just a little bit nervous, by the way. I've stood up and DJ'd in front of thousands of people and all sorts, but I've never actually sat down and talked in front of anybody like this, so I get a bit wobbly. Started off in bands as an art student, and I learnt graphic design. Did my degree, and I went on to my first job as a designer at Mixmag for DMC, who used to hold, well, they still do, the DMC World Mix Championships. And I was with them for a number of years. Then I went on to run the art desk at New Musical Express. That was a lot of fun. A lot of stories there. I could tell you, spend the whole afternoon telling you about that. And I started putting on club nights. I was DJing, and I really liked the fact the press were writing about us. I created this new night. It was called Favouritizm, which is the name of my company still today. And it was all about favourite DJs playing their favourite tunes ever. So going back to this kind of niche, finding your niche in London town or wherever you might be, it was something different and interesting. And basically, we got some of the biggest names, Marshall Jefferson, Robert Owens, all coming down playing their favourite records ever, and it kind of went off. So from that point, I actually left my job as a crayon, and I went to work for a PR company for a year. So I wanted to get into PR, I really enjoyed it. And I learnt the ropes, and I brought quite a few clients in for the company at the time, but I couldn't actually afford to work for them. Living in London, it was quite pricey even back then. And I asked them politely if I could leave and take my clients with me, and they gave me their blessing. So 18 years ago, I set up Favouritizm PR company, and that also diversified into an agency. At the time, a few DJs were looking for help, and a very young Axwell actually came onto my books. At the time, nobody wanted to book him. At the time, he was doing stuff like Mambana and stuff. He was very new to the scene, but an amazing character. The business grew and developed, started doing radio plugging as well, and DJ promoing. Back then, it was a case of sending out 40 vinyls with your rucksack down to the post office. Obviously, it's very different today. And the brand grew. We continued with club nights all over London. Myself as a DJ ended up playing all over, from Miami to Dubai, to Italy, where I've been living for the past 5 years. We did radio shows too back in the day. There was the news station which was launched, Trust the DJ, and we used to do the Favouritizm show on there.
I remember that.
Get the guys in.
I remember that show.
Yeah, it was like one of the first, I think it was the first, if I remember rightly, internet stations, and they were pumping out the music initially. Everybody sounded like they were in the toilet, because the bandwidth was so shit back then. But we had a great time doing all the bits and pieces, residencies in London, and so which brings me today, 18 years later. I'm still running things, not quite doing all the things that I used to do, focusing mainly on my publicity company, and which is flying at the moment, really enjoying it. So that's me.
So let's take it through. An artist wants to get coverage. Why would you use a publicist firstly? What was your role?
My role is to take your music and shine as much light on it as possible, by any means, really. So, we're talking through the traditional press, online press, radio, DJ tastemakers, getting your music heard in the clubs, getting the right support, charts, social media. So there's a massive scope now where you can take your music. Normally a client would approach me, and the clients vary. I mean, I've worked with extremely famous DJs, from David Morales, DJ Sneak, even Prince, through to brand new artists, people like yourselves. Even they've just made their first few tracks and they want some feedback, and they feel they want to invest in PR already. And they'll send those across to me. Basically, I will listen to those to see if I can basically take the job on first. I won't take on every job that I get sent, because sometimes you don't feel it's quite good enough. So it's almost like an A&R process. There might be a small label that's taken it on and they think it's great, or even a massive producer has made a track and I feel it's not quite what the media are maybe potentially looking for at the moment. So sometimes I do turn it down, and it doesn't matter how big or how small you are. If you come to me with new music, I'll listen to it candidly, give you feedback and go, right, yeah, this has got something. Let's take this forward. So then talking with, big artists who have a lot of mechanisms in place, like they have decent biographies, lots to talk about. Obviously a new artist, like some of you in the room today, might not have that experience and had 15 releases and been DJing since 1941 or whatever it is. So where do you start? There's also, being able to communicate about yourself is really important. When creating a biography through to actually doing press articles, you'd be amazed how many people can't actually express themselves through words after sort of being able to communicate such beautiful music to us all. They can't actually talk about it. So being able to communicate how and who you are and putting something across to grab the attention of the media, communicate your music is really important. So I would then take this information, the biogs, and I'd create a press release, listen to the music, describe what it's all about, and to entice the media to pick up on that. And we've got a really great system that we're using at the moment called InFlight, which delivers the music files and the press release, the press kits. Just to take a note as well, with press photos, getting good press shots is really important too. Sending crappy pictures from your phone, sometimes that can work, but a nice shot, basically the journalist is going to pick a nice picture to cover, right?
Having a range of shots.
Yeah,
for me.
yeah.
Different shots require, different types of shots require different purposes.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll need one that's just with you on a black background, or sometimes on a white background, or sometimes with something happening behind you because I want that to pop off the screen.
Absolutely.
And therefore, like if it's appearing on a Facebook post, I want something that's going to pop so that people will maybe see it and click it, So it's a different photo for different purposes.
To go back a bit, when I was the art editor at New Music Express, I really hated how bands would, all through the 80s, they'd all be lined up against a brick wall with their arms folded, and it was just this pose. And I really wanted to break that mould, and we had so much fun, and there was a lot of great budgets back then. And I had one particular band start naked on a pink fluffy rug with brown socks like this. We did all kinds of stuff and encouraging new photographers to come through and really challenge, just the normal bog standard press shots. And we got movement and props. We created all kinds of stuff. So as an artist, being creative with your music, be creative with your own identity as well. You don't just have to be static and, a couple of straight press shots are fun and you don't have to be a clown, but anyway. So moving on to that, I've got this wonderful system that I use called InFlight, and a lot of PR companies and record labels use that. And it's a system where you can upload all the music and all the press kits, press release, and within that I've created a huge database of international contacts. So we're talking international media press, the online magazines, all the radio stations, and the DJ mail-outs as well. So you've got all the top names from Roger Sanchez to Tiesto on my mailing list. So basically we then start sending that out to the media, usually with press. We then start trying to... Sorry, can I just get a drink of water? So anyway, we'll send it out to everybody so they can all have a listen to it, and then we'll start to follow up with phone calls and emails and see what they think of the track, and try and encourage them to maybe do something with it, shine some light on the artists, pitching in, obviously, reviews of the singles and productions that they're doing, and events as well. I'll come on to that in a minute. And also pitching in features, interesting articles, which are appropriate to the music they're making, or appropriate to the situation that they're in at that point in their life, whether you're working with a legend, There's lots of wonderful retrospective pieces to be had, and if there's brand new artists, there's lots of upcoming ones to watch type articles. And there's scope through most of the media. There's scope for every kind of artist in every situation. And obviously, the more creative you are with that content, the more interesting it's going to be. One, for the editor. Two, for the actual reader as well.
Do you think about the features before you take on the client? Do you think about how you're going to sell the story?
Absolutely. Not everyone has a great story, so you have to be a bit creative with that. And sometimes there are kind of bog standard interview formats, just to get them to talk a bit about themselves, what inspires them, where they're looking to be, how they go about creating the music, studio stuff, in studio features. So there's lots of things you can do.
Yeah, I agree. One thing is when you're answering a question is to expand your answer as humanly big as possible. Don't just give a one-line reply to if you're a DJ and you're answering one of those questions.
Yeah, going back to sort of having plenty to say and communicating well about what you've done or what you're doing and responding to questions. I think it's really important to get across what you want to say. And there's also the point of those who write too much.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's interesting, actually. I think today, as Sarah's saying, the whole playing field of journalism has changed tremendously. And a lot of us publicists are actually journalists now, and a lot of us are supplying ready-made content. So an editor might say, yes, I agree to you doing this feature. Great, but I haven't got a journalist to do it. Don't worry, I'll do it. So, 9 times out of 10, this person here will be doing 10, 15 interviews with my artist and delivering that content. So that's a lot of pressure on me as a publicist, whereas before he's like, do you want to do this interview? Great, off you go, and they go and do the interview. I'm thinking of, 10, 15 creative ways to make every interview different. Otherwise, it's just really repetitive, the same content's coming out everywhere. The artist is really bored because they're just answering the same questions. So it's really digging deep to find interesting stuff to talk about, but also relevant stuff too. I know a few publicists that do that now as well, and the real crux of that is because of, I guess, more money is being there used to be a regular stream of advertising revenue that would come to these from a magazine point of view, which now goes straight to Facebook, which means that those magazines don't have that staff to do those interviews, which is I'm guessing why you're having to pick up the slack now and make that happen. Yeah, I mean, going back to, like back in the day, there was, everyone got paid a decent wage in editorial, and this day and age, there's a lot of self-created, blogs online, etc., and they don't really have any funding at all, but, they might have a really good following. They haven't quite cottoned on how to generate income from it yet. But there are obviously the bigger magazines who do have those budgets, and they're prepared to invest on that. So there is, there is scope to be a journalist, and you still can make a great living being a journalist, but because there is saturation now of so many types of publications. 15 years ago, there weren't that many. I mean, now with all the, obviously the online stuff that's going on, my job is like 25 times as harder and more busy than it ever was, because there's just so many mouths to feed, so many people to target. But you can't miss out on that exposure. You need to take it as far and wide as you possibly can to manage clients' expectations and actually make the project, the PR campaign that you're working on, a success. So every box needs to be ticked wherever possible.
So as an artist, you've made a brand new shiny track and you're super happy with it and proud of it, and you want to get loads of exposure for it. What would be your best 3 things to do with that track? Best
3 things to do? Well, firstly, create yourself a nice little biog, etc., and send professional emails out to A&R departments of record labels. Record labels would normally decide, how they're going to publicise the track. So they might employ me, or they might have somebody like me who works in-house. By getting signed to a really good label, they're going to have a lot of mechanisms in place to lift you up as an artist, not just PR, but everything. They can plug you into their network. and off you go. If it's a really good label, you might even get invited to play at their nights, etc. So if we talk about Tour Room or Defected, stuff like that, everybody aspires to being on those kind of labels because there's a future for growth within that company with being in that circle. But saying that, don't just aim high. There are lots of really great labels out there that will do exactly the same, and they'll take on somebody like myself. Getting signed to a good label.
Do you think being proactive yourself as well? If you are signed to a label, then you should be proactively pushing your track as well yourself, and not just relying on yourself or a label to do the groundwork for you.
Absolutely. I think that like the millennials, as was mentioned earlier on, there is a sense of entitlement for sure this day and age. And you need to work yourself to a level. You need to really put that graft in and build your own networks and your own people around you, your own contacts, and really work that ground, whether it's, plugging yourself into gigs, working with other producers, doing all this kind of stuff to really get yourself out of that comfort zone. That's where you're going to start to lift, and things will start to come to you, and the magic will happen in that respect. Building yourself up, with your social media following, creative, interesting things by yourselves, whether it's a DJ mix or something like that, to basically put something out there for your fans, be interesting, be creative. You have to really, really put the work in to do as much as you possibly can, to shine a light on yourself and believe in yourself, be so proactive. And in addition, whatever the record label will do will complement that. They're giving you that extra leg up. They'll shine a light on your release potentially by, getting a bigger name remix on your track as well, which might bring attention that it wouldn't have had otherwise. All these things, I think, are quite important. So it's not just a case of, I got signed and now I'm going to put my feet up and let everybody do the work. You've got to keep going. And if you're as passionate as, like myself and several other producers in this world about music, it will be a fire in your belly and you want to do it. You will have that drive and you want to succeed. But sitting around and just letting everything come to you, it's just not going to happen. You've got to go and find it.
Let's also talk about things like, I guess in this 2019 landscape, let's talk about the best ways to promote yourself. Is doing a mix still a viable thing? Like, does that get you any further?
I think doing mixes is obviously essential to showcase, because that's what you do. If you're a DJ, it's an essential thing what you do. People are obviously more creative these days with Facebook, etc. We've got online broadcasts, television broadcasts, which is kind of fun. Okay, so if you've got a studio, get your mates round, have a party, do a Facebook Live. Create that vibe, which is what you're all about. Broadcast from your club, or a lot of people obviously doing radio shows. You don't even need to have a radio show these days. It's like, I'm going to do my little slot on Facebook or whatever each week. Things like that are kind of fun.
Yeah, I agree on all those. Yeah. Okay, let's. Does anyone have any questions for Sarah? Let's open it up. Promoting yourself, PR, press. Anybody? No. Hello.
Hello, yeah. Which is the most effective social media platform, do you think?
I'd say a lot of people are turning to Instagram these days, but I'd have to say it's Facebook still at the moment.
Yeah, me and myself and Myra are just going to do social media fully, I think, and then I guess when you're pitching for a feature, I guess you get a lot of knockbacks, and a lot of people don't even answer your emails. Apologies sometimes, but and I guess as a publicist you have to be thick-skinned.
That's a really interesting question, yeah. As much as the artist is trying to push through to get heard by A&Rs, us publicists are batting the corner to get heard by the press. And it can be, you can send emails, calls, and not answering. You do have to be pretty thick-skinned, it's true. But it's that motivation, because you really want to do well for your client. If you believe in your client, And as much as that client believes in themselves, I've got a job to do, I've got a responsibility here, and I'm going to bash down every possible wall I can to get that attention for you. The other thing is, as well, as much as emails do get ignored, this whole networking thing and building relationships with the media, be it radio, press, etc. You might not see these guys all the time, face to face like we are today, but we'll link up at a music conference, might be AD, etc. And spending time with those journalists, radio presenters, etc., is fundamental.
Yeah, I agree. The amount of people I've covered because I've hung out and had a beer with them.
Yeah.
Which just because they've just come up and said, "Hey, I'm so and so. I really like your mag. Can we have a chat?" And I'm like, "Yeah, let's do it." And like,
yeah,
literally, and I could. It's in the hundreds now. The amount of people that have got coverage from us just because we'd sat and had a beer, or just because they've messaged and said hi, or just because, really having that network is definitely.
Networking is fundamental. I built my business on going to the Winter Music Conference in Miami for 12 years, and I went round getting to know every DJ with my little bags of vinyl to give them out to her. Hey, I'm Sarah, I got a business, can we work together? And it worked. I got to know all the producers, the DJs, record label bosses, and conferences like this, I can't stress enough how important they are, and what a beautiful playing field it is to actually get to know people. And that's where you build these relationships. You have your laughs, you get drunk, you're there, out till 6 o'clock in the morning. You've got your first meeting at 10 a.m. and you're like, hello, how are you? But you get the business done. And it's the same, not just for music industry people, it's the same for people like yourselves that want to start out in the industry. Finding that camaraderie, things in common, to be able to grow new relationships, to be able to, I've just met you today and da-da-da, and I'll call you, and next thing you're going into the studio together to create something together, or you've met a radio producer and you're invited to do a mix on the show, or a club promoter. Spending that time, like you say, having a beer with someone, but being able to do that, and there's a young lady here today, so, hello, who are you? Be that person to say, hello, who are you? I am such and such, and have that conversation.
Yeah, I mean, this event happened because I wanted to meet all of you, essentially, and I started that conversation that I wanted to meet more people, more DJs around this area, and so I'm still being proactive and still trying to find more people and still trying to find more DJs. I hunt day and night to find the new talent. And scroll SoundCloud sometimes just to trying to find people. So yeah, but also having that network. Once I've met you, then you're imperative. You're going to have legs up all the time.
Yeah, I think I think it's interesting. I mean, as much as a DJ goes to hunt new music, obviously journalists, radio people, everyone's looking for that new feed, that new energy, something really interesting that's going to stand out. Showcases, I think, is another really important thing, and don't be afraid to, if you're going to do something, don't be afraid to try and invite the press down or the local radio, get their support. As much as we were doing, with our club nights, we'd invited down Time Out and everybody else, come and join us, and they came down. When I've worked with bands, etc., we've got a showcase at the Jazz Cafe or something like that. Invite them down to see you. Get them to know you. 9 times out of 10, some of those won't show up, but there might be just that one that will then be the start of another relationship, or something really good could come out of it. A fantastic exposure.
Amazing. Thank you. We're running short on time.
Thanks,
But anyone have any final questions? Anyone have any questions for Sarah? Amazing. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Grahame.